Good morning. It is Tuesday. Put that nipple away for you. It's Tuesday, July something. I don't even know where we're at. Yeah, so we are 3 weeks out. That's fucking crazy to think about. 3 weeks. I did a couple carb simulations last week. I went upwards of like 500 to 600 grams of carbs per day. I did it for like 2 days, and then I backed off for a day. I got really hard after the first like day and a half, and then I started to spill over and look a little bit softer. So I realized my tolerance for carbs is probably somewhere around like the 600 range, comfortably. Maybe upwards of 1,000, depending if I have to cram it all in one day or if I have to basically spread it out between 2 days. So that's valuable information for when I'm actually going into the peak week itself. So, changing the way that you load your carbs on the back end of things seems like it really is the game changer in terms of your look. If you're lean enough and you fill out, you'll look nasty. So I'll probably just do like a 800 to 1,000 gram carb up Friday night after weigh-ins. So they're going to weigh us in with an athlete check-in the 8th, which is like a Friday evening. It's around like 4 p.m.-ish. And then after I hit that weigh-in, then I got to just fucking load food up. So I probably won't eat very much, drink very much water that day to make sure that I make weight. And then I'm just going to fucking load it in and then turn into concrete, hopefully. All right, let us see how this goes today. I trained legs yesterday, did a little bit of hamstring work. So my hinging movements, I definitely feel my hamstrings and glutes right now. So I usually always start off a back day with some sort of loaded spinal extension. So like just something where I'm like opening up my whole posture, because if the intent is to train all of my back, I want to make sure that I hit every muscle in my back, not just my lats with a whole bunch of pull downs or pull ups or pullovers and rows, which what most people do. So I want to try to line the entire back with muscle. So I want to make sure that I'm doing a loaded extension. So I'm going to always start off with these good mornings, just a nice little warm up. I'm going to try to bump my weight up a little bit on this. I usually start with about 25s on each side. The bar is pretty light. It looks heavier than it is. It's like a safety squat bar. It's only about 35 pounds, I believe. 45 pounds. So it's the same weight as like an Olympic barbell. So it's not too heavy. So this total weight's only 95 pounds. Yeah, that felt very light. So we're going to bump up a little bit here. I'm definitely getting stronger with this. I noticed when I first did this exercise a while back, I had a lot of trouble getting everything in the back, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, because whenever you're doing a hinging motion, that's the exact thing you want to avoid, is putting weight in your back. Except with this, that is the whole intention. So let's add a little bit more weight and see how that feels. That felt a lot better. That felt a lot better. It felt very smooth today. Although, using those barbells really goes to show a point I was trying to illustrate in another video, is asymmetry. If you notice when I go down, sometimes I'll tip to one side more than the other. And that's why I have clips on the bar, because generally I don't use clips for anything. I think it's a bad habit to get into, in case you got to bail weight for some reason. But that asymmetry is very prominent when I'm leaning forward and you see one side will dip more than the other. And that's information I like to use, because if I'm asymmetrical, it means there's one side that I'm favoring more than the other. So I need to make sure that I balance it out within unison. So I wouldn't want to just strictly do all barbell-based movements. You know, anything that's gonna like prevent the ability for me to engage one side more than the other because of that asymmetry. So I'll make sure I get a little mix of both, right? So doing something with a fixed grip movement, doing something with variable grips where I can move independently with my arms. You know, this obviously I'm loading the entire spine. So it's not like I'm using an individual arm or individual leg, but the spine itself has rotational properties to it. So, you know, you heard of scoliosis where you're kind of left to right. There's also like forward rotation. So like having all those variables to account for makes it very complicated. And if you spend all your time trying to fucking figure out all the mechanics of everything, you're gonna drive yourself crazy. What I instead encourage you to do is learn how it's supposed to feel, right? If you do it based on the feeling, you're gonna know that you're engaging the muscle, because that's really the only feedback system you have when you're not fully educated on where these muscles are in your body and what they look like entirely. So my best tip to you is gonna be focus on the feeling, not the finish. Always. Feeling, not finish. All right, up next, I'm gonna do some barbell rowing. Blast out my lats. And I get a little bit of retraction with it. I do rows in different ways depending on how I'm trying to target the back. I do a variation between underhand and overhand, so it really just depends on what I'm feeling that day. I'm up a little bit higher. I'm not parallel to the floor. I'm up here. And I'm going straight back with my elbows. What up, dude? All right, so when you're thinking about rowing, right, there's two different things you can keep in mind. There's like an extension element, which means when your arm comes forward and you're driving it backwards, you're not focused on that much of a pinch. You're focused more on like almost like a pendulum movement, like a pendulum swinging movement, okay? Think about like a pullover, right? But then there's also rowing for retraction, which means when you're pinching your shoulder blades. And ideally, you want to get a little bit of combination of both depending on how you're positioned and angled. Like if you're really far forward, like you're almost parallel to the floor, you're going to get a lot more retraction than you're going to get that extension, which means you're going to get more inner back development, like around the traps, in between the shoulder blades. But when you're doing more of a rowing movement, more of that pendulum, that's when you're getting that meat to the lat. That felt very good, very isolated in my lats, right on the outside. Felt the squeeze again. Biggest thing with that's wrist position, okay? So I always put my wrist back into extension when I row, because you don't want to curl in, you're gonna get form and bicep resistance. So opening up to extension, that way it keeps my wrist straight. So every time I'm driving down, right, I'm getting the tension getting pulled from my elbows instead of my wrist and hand. Then that'll make me use my back, right? But if I'm pulling from my hands, I'm gonna get a lot of fore and bicep. But if I pull from my elbows, I'm gonna get a lot of back. So in order to help maximize on that, I put my wrist in that extension. So that way when I'm driving, I'm pulling with my back, I'm not pulling with my biceps. All right, up next, I'm going to do a dumbbell pullover. Now this is very similar. If you ever see somebody using like a rope on a cable and they're pulling through with their body, or they're doing a single arm on a cable, it's a very similar movement, but I'm using a dumbbell. And you can really target your chest, or you could target your lats, like this muscle right here, like with this movement. So like depending on how you position the body, okay? So I'm gonna focus on just my lats, because obviously I have to do my back today. But when you're doing this motion, key things to keep in mind, again, is that asymmetry in your shoulders. Does one shoulder sit higher than the other? Because if I take a dumbbell and I go behind my head, and one of my shoulders sits more forward, I'm going to get a lot more stretch in one side, and that can cause me to damage the shoulder too. You know, you could slip the socket, you can get a dislocation, you could tear something. So you need to make sure you go very light with this movement. I'm only have a 60-pound dumbbell right here, but I see people that go upwards of like 100 pounds, you know, trying to throw that above their head. Go light with this movement, okay? Because again, it's more about the feeling, not the finish. Don't worry about numbers, metrics, focus on how it feels. You got to be able to squeeze driving through. And it's very difficult to keep this movement out of your triceps because this muscle works very similar to the triceps. It works off of like extending your arm backwards. So if you're getting too much in the triceps, you're pushing too much from your hands, okay? You need to learn to pull from your elbows, okay? That's why if you ever see those machines people use where they put their elbows in, they drive it out in front of them, it's the same idea, same concept. You want to load the weight from here, not here. So let's go ahead and hit a few sets of these. All right. So positioning for this can get tricky because you want to bridge your hips up. So I'm off the bench. I want my head to be rested on it because I don't want to elevate it the entire time. I want to be able to rest it and lay it backwards. So I'm going to grab the dumbbell and go straight above my head, bending my elbows, big stretch here. And I want to drive through the elbows, not my hands. Again, showing all the way, big stretch. Driving through. You also don't want to extend up too much, okay? Because you're trying to stretch your lats. So if anything, I'm trying to drop my butt down while I'm bringing my arms backwards to get a stretch, okay? You want to be able to facilitate that body, like the core, while you stretch overhead. So dropping your hips down, extending away. Just like that. The hard part's always the dismount. All right, up next, I'm gonna do some variation of a high pulling movement. Now, there's a couple different ways that you could target different areas of your back when you're pulling from somewhere high. It really depends on where the cable's anchored and where you're bringing your elbows. So if the cable's angled like about, we'll say 60 degrees in front of me, all the way up to about 90, if I pull vertically straight down, then I'm gonna engage a lot of my lats, okay? Pulling through, you could see I'm moving. Now, if I go to about 45 degrees, or if I lean backwards just slightly, that's gonna allow me to retract my shoulder blades more and get more of this like pinching movement, okay? Now that pinching movement is gonna be more upper back development. It's gonna be the back of my shoulders, the traps, like in between my shoulder blades or rhomboids. So that pinching movement is another essential component to building a complete back. And if you don't have that, if you're just doing a bunch of pull down movements and then your back looks kind of smooth and there isn't a lot of detail, it's because you haven't really trained the inside of the back, right? The inside muscles, which require more of this retraction. And it's the most neglected movement because most people have bad posture. So like they start to splay open and it stretches all of those muscles in the back forward and they start to get elongated and they start to get thin looking. So what you want to make sure is you're getting a fair amount of pinching too with your back days and not just pulling with rows. Otherwise you're going to have an incomplete back. So let me show you what I'm talking about. The lighting on that last clip was fucking terrible. So instead I'm going to try to get the same movement. Instead of coming up from an angle leaning backwards, I'm going to get it coming from a horizontal position, so I'm pulling straight back. So kind of like when I was talking about the initial barbell row, if you get more parallel to the floor, you can get more of this retraction where you pinch your shoulder blades. Now, instead of me doing that with a barbell right now, I'm going to instead do that with some cables behind me. There's like a dual cable attachment. So there's two pulleys. Also referring back to what I was saying earlier too, in terms of having like independent grips to allow for that versatility and that asymmetry in your shoulders. So I'm gonna hit some of these
So again, focus on more of a retraction motion, not like an extension. So I'm focusing on like a big pinch in my upper back. So let me show you what I'm talking about. You want to make sure your butt's also tucked behind you. You don't want to tuck it underneath like this. That's going to actually take away the stability from your spine. So you want to put it backwards. And I'm focused on a big squeeze up top. You want to keep the wrists straight. Don't bend them. And you're driving straight backwards with your elbows. On. On. Okay, so something that I like to superset with this exercise is reverse flies. So a lot of people, you do it on the machine that they also do the chest on, they spin around, they use the handles. I honestly don't like that because I feel, especially with people's bad posture, they have this tendency to rotate their shoulder to the inside and they feel this weird unstable tension in the front of their shoulder when they're actually doing the movement. So that's not where you're supposed to feel it. And if you're getting like some unstable tension in a different part of the muscle where you're not even supposed to be feeling anything, it's probably not prioritizing that isolation you're looking for to really make sure that it grows, right? So what you want to do instead is find a way to mimic that movement, whether that be with cables or whether that be also with dumbbells, or in this case, kettlebells. So when I do this motion, I try to get not necessarily parallel to the ground, but pretty close. And I like to use a kettlebell instead of a dumbbell. And the reason why is because with a kettlebell, the weight is centered directly underneath my hand. Now, if I were to use like a dumbbell, the weight is lateral to my wrist. So then I have this like flexion and deviation that I need to be concerned with now that's gonna put stress in my forearms. And that's not what I'm trying to do, right? So I try to prioritize it with a weight that is like fixed on the bottom and it's all underneath my hand instead of lateral to my wrist. So kettlebells are perfect for this. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm gonna grab both these kettlebells and I'm gonna do a reverse fly movement. So as you see, that's putting a lot of focus on this back part of my shoulder right here. So to really get that definition, and that pop in the entire shoulder, you need that back half so it looks like a steak. And that's what I'm doing is I'm driving backwards and I'm trying to keep my wrist straight so I could leverage from that. But I'm not coming straight back. I'm coming back on like an angle because as you see, where my shoulder's naturally positioned is on a downward angle is when I really engage at. If I come up too high, I actually kind of limit my range. And also, again, you put your shoulder into that internal rotation where it's most susceptible to injury. So I try to go backwards on an angle, coming down. So when I lean forward, it's kind of coming up. I hope that makes sense. Good morning. All right, let's hit some posing here. Oh, I had some veins coming through the abs there just now. All right.
It's wild. A couple high carb days, and then I go back to baseline, and everything tightens back up. I think I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Oh, fuck. Let me take these headphones out. Sometimes I'll leave those in and I'll talk to people. And since they're like noise canceling, I don't realize how loud I'm talking. And I'm like screaming at people and they're like, yo, take the headphones out. All right, so hello everybody. What the hell's that red thing mean? Is there a little red thing here? Hello? Hello? Is it coming through the mic right now? Why is it red? There's a blue one here. I think that's the power, but what the hell's... I think that red one means it's recording. Should I turn that off? All right, there we go. I think when I touch it to the side of this fucking thing, it like resyncs the... That was weird. All right, whatever. Anyway, I'm done with my day now. And I'm going home, and it feels good because I'm gaining a little bit of time back. What time is it? It's like 5 or something, somewhere close to there. Not even 5 o'clock yet. And I'm done. Man, I had a very fun day. I love it. I love it when my days are short. Let me just tell you, I love short, productive days. You know, I don't like incessantly long days where you don't get a lot done because your mind starts to turn off its productive function after a certain period of time. And that productive function threshold is drastically shortened due to the fact that my calories are very low. And my productivity is taking a hit. However, we're still chugging along. And I try to, sometimes I feel like I'm complaining, but like really, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy this. I just am dealing with a large amount of fatigue right now, which is, difficult when your job is both physically, mentally, and emotionally taxing. And you got to give all three of those channels energy when you're coaching people in person. So anyway, I think I'm starting to ramble.
In the past, death was a daily and visceral presence in cities and towns, something hard to escape. By a certain age, most people had seen firsthand the deaths of others. Today, in many parts of the world, we have made death largely invisible, something that occurs only in hospitals. We have done something similar to the animals that we eat. We can pass through most of life without ever physically witnessing what happens. This gives a rather unreal aspect to what is so profoundly a part of life. This unreality is enhanced in the entertainment we consume, in which death is made to seem rather cartoonish, with dozens of people dying violent deaths without any attendant emotion except excitement at the imagery on the screen. This reveals how deep the need is to repress the awareness and desensitize ourselves to the fear.
Yo, what the fuck?
Get out of here.
What the fuck? This chapter is about the law of death denial. And when he talks about that, he says, like, death is largely invisible to us today. Like, we don't see the food that gets killed that we eat. We don't even see death because it's been pushed into hospitals and stuff, and it's kind of away from our awareness. So it changes the way that we view death, which is fucking nuts. Because he's also saying that in reality, in life, death is experienced in very small ways. Our own death. Like, when we leave a relationship, or we leave a job, or like we have a big life change. He goes, you're going through transitory periods where parts of yourself die and you become a new person. And we repress that today. We repress change. We don't want to be different. We deny death because we don't see it. And as a result, it creates this like residual repressed fear that just sits with us at all times and creates a mild anxiety. That's crazy. Don't you think so?
Sure.
Sure. Look at her wearing the same thing as me today, red and black.
You copying me.
I put this on before you even woke up.
I didn't even see you.
Yeah, that's right, because you were sleeping. Which means I chose this first and you chose that second. So who copied who? I feel like it's been so long since you've been in my videos. She's just crabby as shit in the morning and just wants to read her little book. Huh?
You're crabby. You're the crabbiest.
You're the crabbiest.
You wake me up fucking screaming.
Because I fucking wake you up 3 times and we're on a tight schedule.
So?
You
should be nice. I'm not gonna wake up if you're gonna be an asshole.
You gotta get them cheeks out of bed or I'll make you. All right, today we have chest, and ironically, every time I train chest, I'm always wearing the same thing. So it's becoming a habit. But all right, let's get in there. I'm gonna give her her peace and alone time here for a minute before she starts screaming at me. Good afternoon, evening, friends. Jesus. Did you just see that? Just trying to put the mic on in a fashionable way. Flung out of my fingers. All right, so I just finished up with cardio, and let me tell you that what's been a game changer for me, because I do about an hour cardio a day right now. I do 20 minutes of stairs after my workout, which really is nothing. I mean, it still sucks, but it's not that bad. Though what does suck is doing 40 minutes of cardio in the evening after I've had my whole day. I've worked out in the morning, I've had my entire day of shenanigans with work, physically, emotionally, mentally taxing, and then I have to do another 40 minutes of cardio. So I'm like, watching shows and listening to music at this point is just not in the equation. It just doesn't work anymore because I just end up like gravitating away with my ADD and looking at the time, and it makes it so much longer than it has to be. So what I did instead was I bought a Nintendo Switch, and you've seen in the other clip, I was playing it the other day when I was doing my cardio. So it's got this cool little controller contraption that I can make, and then it's got this screen, so it's like a full-scale gaming console. And I put it up on the recumbent bike, and I'll just sit there and I'll just play. And I'm having a fantastic time. It's definitely killing through the hours there. So I find it to be very painful to do 40 minutes of cardio if I don't have something distracting me, because I am very ADD and I start to gravitate and wander, and my body's tired and I keep thinking about that. So this definitely is a game changer. The time fucking flies by. I'll be pouring sweat, and it's so hot outside you can't even tell the sweat is dried up on my hoodie already. But this thing was drenched in sweat, and yeah, I'm definitely putting in some fucking work. I do about 10 miles on the bike. It ends up being, it's 40 minutes of cardio. So yeah, I'm fucking tired now. And now I finish up my cardio, I'm ready to go, and Nagar just gets here and she just changes right after I text her, and I'm like, well, fuck. I said, what can I do? She goes, well, go to Whole Foods, go grab some shit that we need So I might end up going to do that. Or I might end up just sitting here playing my fucking Switch in the car and waiting for her to finish, and then we'll just go together. I don't know, either or. Maybe I'll just wait for her and I'll play my Switch. So I think that's what I'm going to do instead. All right, friends. So 3 weeks out, I did a little bit of posing today for, it was a little bit earlier clip. I trained some chest and shoulders. I gave a full commentary on the previous workout, so I didn't feel like this one needed too much. This is just another chest day, and ironically wearing the same thing. I think I'm like a man of routine. I think that's what it is. So yeah, that's it. Feeling like shit. Feeling tired. Feeling just how I should. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to lie. It wasn't that bad today. I feel like it wasn't that... The energy was not that terrible. But I'm definitely hungry. And, like, although I'm not, like... I think I have, like, a lot of physical fatigue, per se. My legs feel very heavy, and like, it feels like just standing up is a burden. It feels like keeping my posture straight is a burden. It's just like, shit. All right, anyway, I'm done complaining. I think I'm just going to end this vlog here. I think this was a good amount of time to share with you. You know, I hope you got some value. Thanks for watching if you made it to the end. And I hope you're enjoying this prep. I hope you're enjoying... you know, the things that I'm trying to share with you and show with you, the good, the bad, the ugly. And if there's anything that you want to see more of, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Like, let me know. Give me some feedback. You want to see more workout stuff, more explanations? You want to see more personal life, like with my wife? You know, what do you want to see? So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And next time you see me, it'll be 2 weeks out.